Welcome to the Mama's Well podcast, where we are digging deep into the gifts and the gaps of foster and adoptive parenting. I'm Tara Hutton, and I'm glad you're here.
Mama's Well.
Yes, she is. Well, hello. If this is your first time to the Mama's Well podcast, let me just say this is a parenting podcast, but it's a unique parenting podcast. We're not giving answers for how you get your kids to potty train or to say yes ma'am and no ma'am and things like that. We're really learning that parenting a lot of times is about reparenting ourselves and getting clear on why we do the things that we do and understanding that we too have experienced difficulties and trauma in our life. And there's a lot of different kinds of trauma. And some of the things I've shared on the podcast, not only are we raising children who've experienced trauma that have come to us through foster care, but I have a very personal trauma that I really haven't shared much about on this podcast, but I walked with my mother through cancer in 2011, and that was really, really traumatic. It was a very traumatic time in my life. We found out she had cancer, and 4 months later she passed away. So she didn't appear sick to us, but we know that she must have been, because it doesn't just, start one day and there you have it. So anyway, sometimes, I think all the time, trauma kind of leads us to do some digging. It leads us to look for answers in desperation sometimes, because I know at that time in my life I was scared and I was panicked and I didn't ever want to feel that way again. And it really led me to search for, what can I do to avoid this? What can I do? How can I be strong? How can I help my family be strong? And so that led me to meet a lot of really amazing people. And one of the people that I've met along this journey of trying to understand how I can build an immune system that can fight and that can heal from traumas, and that can be physical or emotional traumas, is my good friend. I call her a good friend now, Michelle Keys. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
I am very happy to be with you. Michelle, you know a lot about that trauma that I experienced.
I do.
In a very, would you share a little bit about your introduction to that?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Canada, and then transplanted here. I don't know what they say in Texas. I wasn't born here, but I got here as quick as I can.
There you go.
So, and I moved here to be with my husband, Kevin, who I've been married to for 23 years. And we had these, had these two wonderful children. So busy mom. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I was an educator in Canada. I moved here. I taught here for about 5 years, and then decided to stay home with my kiddos. And so I was the one kind of bringing them to the park and running them around all the time. And by the time, so my son is Carson, my daughter is Isabella, and by the time Carson was about 3.5, this was back in 2007, I feel like I was visiting the pediatrician more than I was visiting the park. Couldn't go today, somebody had the sniffles, couldn't go this time, and so one doctor's appointment led to another doctor's appointment, chronically on antibiotics and ear infections and just all kinds of things. And so in the end, we ended up seeing a specialist, and it was determined that he had to have what they called routine surgery, where tubes would be put in his ears and adenoids would be taken out. They said these were the largest adenoids they'd ever seen. And I was like, oh, okay, so here we are, two young parents sitting in a waiting room that, if you've ever sat in a waiting room while your child's in surgery, it seems like it takes forever. It actually was taking forever. And they came out and they asked us to step into a different room, which is never a good sign. And so they went on to explain that it was not adenoids, but we saw in the x-ray that actually was a tumor And my husband was, he's a very positive. He's a chiropractor, so very educated healthcare. And we were doing all kinds of things right, So this was a shock. And his first reaction was, well, there are benign tumors, And Dr. Stark was our ENT, and he just looked at us and he said, not this one. He said, this is the most angry looking tumor I have ever seen. And just a side note, he had just lost his wife to leukemia, probably 2-3 years prior. So he felt the need to biopsy it. He did. And right then and there, they, stabilized him and made sure he was okay. But within 20 minutes, we were looking at a diagnosis of a 3-year-old. It was called Burkitt's lymphoma. It was a very rare and aggressive form of cancer. Wow. So that's where we were, extremely just blindsided from this routine surgery that we were just going to be, in and out. Our next steps were calling family, and, everybody that I know that I called that day remembers exactly where they were when I called. So it's just like, it's a jaw dropper. Yeah. However, we were rushed to MD Anderson here in Houston. Very blessed that we were so close. Mm-hmm. We were put with an amazing oncologist and given a treatment plan that we stuck with. And we had I could talk for another hour on, the ups and downs. But our main goal was just, he was 3. And so when children are that young, they're pliable, they're impressionable, and they will believe what you tell them. So I did not want him to be afraid. Therefore, my actions, my words, showed no fear. So that was just how we, whether it be right or wrong, that's how we got through it. And everything was an adventure, and jumped into his imagination, and we finished up treatment. He was almost 4 and very, very tiny. I don't even know that he was 26 pounds at 4 years old. He was so thin, frail. We went to leave the hospital, and the oncologist was just like, okay, here's a few do's, a few don'ts. And she said, you have to be careful because he is immunosuppressed. And I was like, okay, know exactly what that means, but I'm going to go home and I'm going to dive into that. And so that's where I started with as you said, diving in and digging and overturning rocks. And that's where I started. Yeah,
I'm learning about myself that when I get afraid, I often reach for knowledge. Like, I want to be empowered, and knowledge does that for me. It could be slightly, deceiving, right? Because while knowledge is empowering, it's also not the end all be all to protect yourself. So I have to walk this tension between what I know, whether it's what I'm learning about trauma, and why I started this podcast, because I desire to know. Let me know, because I can fix this, right? I want to fix this. That's where the tension lies. Is like, I might not be able to fix everything, but
I think it is very important to doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. I think it's extremely important to read both sides. If this article says that orange juice is good for you, then I want to read the article that says orange juice is bad for you, because I want to know what they're saying, and I want to know what they're saying, and I want to be informed about, and obviously consider the source, use reputable sources. But I was, everywhere from, and I will tell you this, I did not research, I did not even touch an internet button when I was in the hospital. I didn't think it was a good idea. It would have, sent you down a tailspin. So, but it's when I came out that I decided to just dive in, and I took that word immunosuppression, and I found out what it meant. Turns out, just means that your immune system is suppressed. Yeah. So I thought, okay, all right, then let's get to work. So I found out what would actually. I took some time, and that was a very big project to find out what built your immune system up and what tore it down. So then I got an answer to those 2 questions, and I focused on what would build it up.
Yeah.
I
So hold on.
yeah.
I like that. What built your what builds your immune system up, and what tears your immune system?
What tears it
What
down?
does tear your immune system down?
So the number one weakener of the immune system is sugar.
Wow.
So that to me was it was interesting because when you think about building up your immune system, you think about popping vitamin D and omega-3s and all of these kinds of supplements. Number one weakener was sugar. So if that's what's causing a weakness, if you have a chain and you've got a weak link, you want to remove that. It's very difficult to do, remove sugar. It's especially in
A 4-year-old.
today, well, a 4-year-old, today's
Yeah.
day and age, where here's a cookie, there's a cookie, everywhere's a cookie.
Yeah.
And people think they're doing well. So it's just hard to remove. I use the Super Bowl as an example all the time. You play in the Super Bowl and one team just can't pull the quarterback. It won't work. So you have to put something else in place. So I focused, first I focused on removing things that weaken, yes, but I focused more on what built it up.
Yeah.
And those kinds of things, the hearty greens, the vegetables, if I had to chop them teeny tiny and throw them in a hamburger,
Yeah.
just getting away with a few things like that. You cannot take a sugary cereal away from a 3-year-old and give them a spinach smoothie and say, here's breakfast.
Yeah.
I made a little bit of a change, a little tweak. It's not going to work. So little tiny changes that made a big difference. And there's other forms of sugar. There's white sugar, but there's other forms there's natural sugars like honey and maple syrup. Sugar is still sugar, but you cannot just pull it all. You have to learn how to substitute and kind of take it down a little bit.
Yeah. And, when we think of, I mentioned at the beginning that there's all kinds of trauma, right? And something that I'm learning is that we're a whole being. So how if we have a physical trauma, like the surgeries and the chemotherapy and all of that, that's like literally a trauma to Carson's body.
Yes.
But we also have emotional traumas that have gone on with a lot of the kids that we bring into our home.
Of course.
You were experiencing emotional trauma. I would guess that emotional trauma also weakens our immune system. I know that when I am struggling emotionally, I tend to get sick. I tend to get colds. I get fever blisters. So fever blisters are often, anyone that gets them kind of knows, well, they kind of know the triggers. Either I had a cold,
Sure.
or I'm struggling emotionally. So that's an immune compromise. Like that's because my immune system is weakened. I got sick. That's one of the things I always remember in my head.
So, it's kind of, I understand that with foster and adoptive children, that there may be a lot of emotional trauma there and a lot of behavior issues.
Yes.
Ironically enough, before we found out any of this, my son was 3 years old. His behavior was off the charts, but so would yours be if you had a tumor the size of your fist growing behind your face, behind your nose, in your face. His behavior was terrible. So, and the cookies and the cakes and everyone wants dessert. And I feel like it starts, if it starts at starts at Valentine's Day or it starts at Halloween and it goes all the way to Valentine's Day, we start again, and there's just always a reason for a treat. And I'm not against treats. I just think that they could be made with different ingredients. And I don't understand everyone. If you took a poll on the street and said, would you like a healthy child? 100% are going to say, yes, I'd like a healthy child. But then that poll will plummet when you ask them if they want to eat healthy food or if they want to live a healthy lifestyle. It's a great connotation when you say healthy child, but it has this opposite effect, which was I don't use that word. I don't use the word healthy. I often take a good, better, and best approach. So better is that kind of sweet spot. I'll use the word better more than I use the word healthy.
I like it. Good, better, and best. That's
Yes.
very compassionate.
It's
Because they're all good.
It is.
Good, better, and best.
And if I've learned one thing over I guess it's been, 15 years that I've been immersed in this, I have learned you got to go get all in, and you cut everything out, and you can make yourself miserable, and you can stress yourself out. I think I stressed other people out as well, close friends and family. I thank them for sticking around. But I learned that it was like, where do I start? Everyone can ask that same question, but the answer is different for everyone. We have to start where you are. And that's totally different. I mean, you could have a listener today that is barely making it financially, maybe had an opportunity to adopt one child and then ended up with 3. And maybe they are just trying to make ends meet and they're running through the drive-through every day. No judgment. That is where you are. It's not my place to judge. So if that is their good, their better could be to cut one fast food meal a week, not cut fast food.
Right.
That's unreasonable.
Right.
So reasonable expectations would be part of that, making smart goals, not you just can't do. And what happens is when people make unreasonable expectations, when they make these goals that are unreasonable, they end up
Quitting.
right away.
Yeah.
They're the first ones to quit.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that does awful things emotionally to our minds. It is our minds that control all of it. So I often will say, okay, I need you to help me. People say, I need you to help me with my diet. Or I need you to help me lose 10 pounds. First thing I always say is, I cannot change the way you think about food. You can change the way you think about food. And if you are staring at a brownie and all you want to do is eat that brownie, at the end of the day, you're going to eat the brownie. So I feel like you need to change your mindset. And I can have that brownie, but that brownie will be there tomorrow. And I can make a decision today, and I can make a different decision tomorrow. So it's all about their mindset.
Yeah.
And if cutting one fast food run per week can be there better, the next week we can work on a best, maybe doing 2, or the next month.
Yeah.
We meet people where they are, and we grow from there.
Yeah. So, and when you keep saying we, and I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but I just want to say this, like this journey with Carson, which by the way is now 18.
He is 18.
18 years old. He's
Yes.
one of my son Carter's best friends.
Yes.
They run cross country and track together. He is a delightful, valedictorian of his class.
Aw.
Absolutely
Well, thank
delightful
you.
young man, and that everyone truly wants to be around. And so his journey has like opened up doors for you to help a lot of other people. And I want to talk about that, but before when you're saying we, like you are engaged in this, you are walking alongside other people right now, helping them.
Yes. And I appreciate that. And Carter's been a blessing to our family as well. Has always been a great friend to Carson. And I wasn't going to say valedictorian. You said it.
He is.
But I want to say something about that. That to me it's such a different perspective after what we've gone through in our lives. He had a strong why. And I'll talk about
he had a
cancer
strong
patients
why.
or trauma patients, period, and their why in just a second. But his why was so strong because when I found out he was valedictorian, I had an immediate flashback to an MRI with that tumor. Anyone who's struggling with cancer, never call it my tumor or your tumor, that tumor. It doesn't belong to you, and you don't claim ownership of that. But that tumor was eroding the base of his brain. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what is going to happen? He was a bright young little one, and I just accepted. And I remember, he'll tell you this, that, does your mom put pressure on you? And I've told him a million times, I was just happy you could ride a bike. When I saw that kid balancing on a 2-wheel bike, I cried because it's an accomplishment. So valedictorian was over the top for us. But, so getting back, I was teaching a class at my husband's practice, and getting back to the why, some people, they want to change their nutrition. Some people fully understand that if they are in a chiropractor's office receiving care for inflammatory illness, that if they bring the inflammation down, which you can totally do through food, and inflammatory behavior also inflammatory food contributes to inflammatory behavior. So whether it be a child struggling with behavior or an adult struggling with a back issue, that inflammation comes down, they heal faster.
Yeah. I want to stop right there because this is where we might, if you're sitting here going, okay, I can't add one more thing to my list. If I say this why, that inflammation causes inflammatory behavior.
Yes.
Okay. A lot of people are dealing with behaviors that are I love that word, inflammatory, right?
And not only for them, for the parent.
Yes.
It causes the parent to then inflame.
Yes.
And that just brings you down darn it,
So we like to deal with, we want to know, I shouldn't say we, but I'm always like, well, here's the problem. What's the solution?
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Well, what we're about to say is a potential big part of the solution because we're whole beings.
Yes.
We have to address our whole being, our mind, body, and spirit. Yeah. And so when we're helping kids calm, we have to give food that helps calm.
100%.
Yeah. And so that's what you were doing. You were calming down inflammation inside Carson's body.
And the behavior, it was immediate. The behavior changes were immediate.
So I'm not going to forget what you're doing as far as teaching. Yes. I want to come back to that, but I want to take us back to that part of the story. You come home from the hospital. We didn't digress. We were right on track, but we came home from the hospital. You started doing all this research. What happened in your family? Like what happened in your family? What did that research lend itself to?
I decided we were going to do this. We were going to build the immune system up and not to, and take anything out or substitute out things that tore it down. Well, why would I do that just for him?
Right.
Because he received chemotherapy and we didn't. That makes zero sense. So we did that for our entire family. Right. And we removed things, for example, we removed sugars. We removed things that would actually, the body would metabolize as a sugar. We removed a lot of packaged foods. We didn't really eat a lot of junk food. We're not a junk food family, but pastas is a packaged food. Rice is packaged food. Not that we don't eat that today, but we kind of took that down a lot and put in a lot more. We did a lot of broths. We did a lot of, I guess at the time I was making changes to incorporate a lot of more organic things, which is expensive. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't going to the store and buying, 4 organic steaks for us. No. I would buy 1 organic steak and I would chop it up and make a stew. So that way it would be in a nice broth with a lot of vegetables. I will say the younger your child is, the easier it is to make that change. Mm-hmm. But it's not impossible. Mm-hmm. When you empower them properly, any age is possible to empower them to make these changes. Yeah. But when they understand why, for example, if you have a child and they're on the floor, unruly, kicking, screaming, having an absolute tantrum, we had several of those when my children were young. Sure. I'll tell you what, dietary changes, those tantrums went away. I couldn't even remember. And, you have an aha moment like, gosh, when was the last time? It's horrible, but the worst was when they would go to church and get those treats and come home Sunday afternoon. What? But if you can even counteract that, blood sugar. So if you want to say, okay, so I can't take all this sugar out, where do I start? Just know that the child's blood sugar should look like a steady eddy line, little up when they eat, little comes back down, little up, little down. It should not look like a monitor if someone hits a drum, like boom, and then drop, and then boom, and then drop. It should be a little bit of a wave, but it should not spike and drop. Those spikes are very uncomfortable within the cells in the body. And then the crash is what makes people very cranky. Mm-hmm. So I think teaching the children how to identify those feelings is a great start. And
what kind of things would you do?
So I would, for example, when you give a snack, if you just give an apple, an apple is a great snack, but it's only a carbohydrate. It's a sugar. Okay. So not that that's bad at all. It also has the fiber and the juice. God packaged it all together. but I would put a nut butter or some nuts or something with a little bit of fat with that. I would say when the child, and this is a great thing to teach your kids, draw a circle, do a plate with, 3 different little circles inside, and put F for fat, or spell it out depending on their age, C for carbohydrate or carb, and then P for protein. And they need to know, what is a fat? What is a protein? What is a carbohydrate? And then they can even make their own little placemat with that on it and put their little snacks on there. An overflowing bowl of goldfish is no fat and no protein. It's just sugar for them. Carbohydrates always break down to sugar. So if they can understand, I like to use a stool for an example with three legs.
Yeah.
If you take one away, it's wobbly.
Right.
If you have that, that's the essence of a balanced diet. I think that's a good way to start.
Yeah. And then did you talk to your kids about like, how are you feeling? Like in other words, like, how does that feel? Or, because I can imagine like, when you first are dealing with some trauma, whether it was when my mom had cancer, when Carson had cancer, when the girls first came into our home,
Yes.
there's a time where you just need to stabilize.
Yes.
Right? And you might be just doing, I don't even know. Sometimes I felt like I wasn't even doing good. I was just okay, or hanging in there or whatever.
Sometimes we have to take our hand and put it over our mouth, and I think compliment before you critique. Just compliment before.
Yeah.
Don't say, what are you doing? Why are you eating that?
Yeah.
But, if you did notice that they balanced their meal out and had an opportunity to have some junk and passed on it, what's wrong with saying, hey, like I saw you on the track the other day, you look stronger.
Yeah.
Or, to know, and these aren't lies. You
No.
are noticing
Yeah.
when they are eating better,
Yeah.
you can tell.
Yeah.
And, or hey, I saw the way, if they're little, I saw the way you lifted and put your toys away. You must be getting stronger for all those great choices you're making. They will hold on to that. They will think about that for days.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, those critiques, they last months.
Yeah.
And it's harder to get over.
Yeah, and sometimes my focus needs to start here. Like, for example, I might say, oh, here's a dressing. If I'm at the store, I'm like, oh, that has 27 grams of sugar, and that's a lot of sugar.
And all
and
the
just
people who think they're
be
doing well for ordering the salad.
Yeah, or talking about it, like not necessarily to them, but just to myself. I think it's teaching them about that, and also how I feel when I ate that cake, and now I feel kind of foggy, or I feel a little bloated, or whatever.
I never miss an opportunity if
To talk
anyone
about.
came to say, I don't feel well, or I'm really tired, or I could say, hey, you're a little cranky, like what's going on? And I don't say, what did you eat? I will say, I just want you to think about, is it something maybe like, did something happen at school? Did you eat something that upset your stomach? It does make them think that they maybe didn't eat something to upset their stomach, but it does pose the question, what did I eat? And children are brilliant.
Yeah, you're getting them to connect
what
we're putting in our body to how we feel.
And if they're sitting there, you come in, or, they've gotten in the pantry and they're just kind of downloading some goldfish, you say, oh, no way, hey, why don't we take a little handful of that? And I'm not a goldfish fan. I know I've used that as an example, but I know it's a quick snack and a lot of parents go to it. However, let's maybe, that is a carbohydrate, but what's a different carbohydrate? An apple, or, and then if you shame them in the moment, then they already feel belittled. They feel like they lost.
Yeah.
And I feel like giving them the win,
Sure.
next time when they go in there, they may think, what is a different carbohydrate? Maybe I'll go and get a piece of fruit or a banana or
Yeah. In trauma training, we use there's a lot of different approaches, a lot of different interventions, but one intervention that's very common in my agency and then with other agencies called TBRI. It stands for Trust-Based Relational Intervention. And there's 3 pillars. And what that means is that you're building trust. You're building trust, and that the intervention is based on trust. So it's like trust is the base. Everything is about trust. And there's 3 pillars to TBRI. One is empowering, connecting, and correcting. So empowering has to do with it has to do with giving them food and water there's 3 things to empowerment: giving them food and water every 2 hours, and giving them sensory opportunities every 2 hours.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so what you're talking about is empowering them. So if we are going to be thinking about giving them food every 2 hours, we're basically thinking about it's like this, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, you're basically saying, hey, this is important to regulate the body, is to empower them, is to regulate the body. So if we're giving them the right food, we're like really upping the ante. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we're really upping the ante. So like when we go up to do our school at home, the first thing I say is bring your water cup. It's 9:30. We just had this snack. At 11:30, we're having another snack. And so just being able to think about, like, I'm going to get food, because many children have had maybe a disruption in the food that they had. Maybe,
Some of them
they've
have gone
come from
without.
an orphanage,
Yes.
or maybe their parents were struggling with mental issues or addiction, and they weren't fed regularly. So their bodies are literally going into fight, flight, or freeze response when they're not getting food, because they don't know that it's just another hour. They don't know when they're going to get fed.
Understandable.
And so that's the first step. And so I think what we're talking about here is not only about building an immune system, but we are really talking about that first step in trauma recovery, which is to empower the child.
Do they have systems in place for, I just feel like if a child had gone without, like you say, and you probably can't focus on anything else other than thinking about when your next meal was, but even like a little pouch system, or where they could lay out their snacks for the day so they know they're there.
Yes. Isn't that beautiful? Wouldn't that be that is something that we're taught, is to, like, what are the snacks? And I have certain snacks that I don't have to get.
Sure.
In other words, like, they can always go get carrots. They can always go get an apple. They can always go get some pecans or nuts or whatever. Like, they don't even really have to ask me to get those kind of things. And so having those things
accessible,
it's very empowering. And I know that
they've done it themselves.
Yeah. And I know anybody that was listening, I don't remember what episode, I think I might have written it down. Episode 53, I had Chef Kibby.
Yes, he was great.
Yeah, he's an adoptive dad. He's a chef, and if you didn't listen to that one, go back and listen. But he uses these pillars in his kitchen with his kids. And so what we didn't talk about a lot in that episode is what we're talking about today, which is like, okay, like this is like that was not even good. That was better. That was even best what he's doing. But what we didn't really talk about that is like that the kinds of foods we're giving our kids matter. And I want to get to I'm trying to get to a story the long-winded way of something that I know your family did. He talks about cooking with your kids in the kitchen. And that is something that you guys did when your children were very, very young.
From the beginning.
Yeah. So
prior to illness.
Oh, prior to illness.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, like, you didn't know anything about TBRI. You didn't know anything about empowering and
what
Chef
I did
Kibby.
know is that my husband worked all day and he really wanted dinner when he came home. That's what I knew.
So what did y'all do? Because to me, when I brought my daughters in the kitchen after that Chef Kibby thing, and we've done some stuff. We even did some stuff on your cooking show.
Yes.
But I gave my daughter a knife and a cutting board, and she's 9, and we watched some videos on how to use that knife, and she was chopping up celery and eating it. Celery is not even my favorite. And I like to eat healthy food.
Kids will take part in, now, when I go back and I say that, my husband was working and I knew he was coming home for dinner, I had a little thing that you pulled up to the counter. It was called the tower, and they would stand on it, and I would give them things like, for example, you said sensory, a bowl full of dried beans, put their hands in there. Like, it's very calming. Or make a little bit of flour and a little bit of dough. They could, I was getting dinner ready, but they were occupied, and as I'm talking 2 and 3. Now, once they get older, 4, 5, I would absolutely give, if they could, too young to use a knife, you give them a fork. So, for example, if we were going to have a nice if I was going to make a tomato sauce, I would use fresh tomatoes for that. So if they were too young to cut, I would give them a fork, and all they had to do was puncture the tomatoes so some juice came out, put them back in the bowl. I'll take it from there. But they think they made dinner when they're that young. And depending on the age, I'm huge about environment. I would say bring your kids into the kitchen. And I don't even know that you say you're helping me cook dinner. While they're standing there talking, put some music on. Ask them to just grab the celery for you. And, oh, hey, I'm a little behind. Do you mind cutting this for me? And just little things. My son will tell you, if you stand in the kitchen, you will be put to work. I mean, they know now. They figured it out. Yeah. But it ended up being a beautiful relational experience. And we always say we're so glad our meatballs can't talk because it takes time. You roll in little meatballs. But I feel like at any age, at any time, I know it takes time and people are so cramped for time, but maybe the end result isn't a meal. Maybe it's just to start, just to get them in there. And like you say, cut some celery. If you cut celery today, carrots tomorrow, and onions on Wednesday, by Thursday, throw chicken in a pot and you have soup. Yeah. So little bit at a time, little things, big changes.
And what if you could say in your mind, okay, the dinner is the like bonus. Mm-hmm. What if you said you and your daughter, you and your son just had a therapeutic, like you just had 1 free hour of therapy because you empowered by not only giving healthy foods, but you empowered by teaching them how to use a knife and giving them space in the kitchen. You connected because you played music. You maybe had a dance from the kitchen, from the refrigerator to the sink.
Always.
You connected because you trusted them to come into your world and be with you in what you're doing. And then there probably wasn't even any need for correction during all of that.
Usually there's not. And a lot of times I will only correct if there needs to, what's the difference if one meatball is they actually, if you're trying to make meatballs a certain size, they're smart. Kids mine's a little bit bigger, and I'll say, don't worry about it. But the next one, they'll make it the same, And
you know what? I just realized you really are correcting, because correcting is about changing thoughts and behaviors, and so that the child can authentically show up. It's about changing thoughts and behaviors. It's not always about that's not right or that's not right. It's about changing thoughts and behaviors. And by being in the kitchen with you, you just changed how I feel about myself, because I just made meatballs.
And their hands are busy.
Yeah.
And their minds are involved. And you can empower them just by saying, I don't know, what kind of music do you want to listen to? You put that on, know, and different people will choose different things. Maybe they don't want to do that every day, but there's little bits when it's a good experience. They may even just want to pull up a chair and do homework while you're cooking. Right. It just needs to creating the environment and setting a beautiful table, letting them decorate placemats depending on the age of the child. But I think I had told you this story before, but I heard a long time ago about Guy Fieri, that Food Network guy. Someone asked him why he became a chef, and he said he made his dad a steak when he was 12 years old or something. And his dad said, that is the best steak I've ever had in my life. And that was a sentence. And look what happened, So I feel like we as parents don't miss the opportunity. Who cares if one meatball's bigger than another one, or they go to make a bed and it's all on one side. They're getting right back in there tonight. Tomorrow's another day. Right. Keep encouraging, keep empowering. What the trust part about this and the trauma training is, you want them to be with you. And we can start by prepping, just like I said. If they do a little bit of this today, well, then you may have more time to go to the park with them tomorrow, because some of dinner tomorrow is already done. We already cut some stuff up, or we already put some spices on a roast.
Let's talk about that, because that's another thing. When I first met you, I heard about you before I met you.
Oh dear.
And it's wonderful. And what I heard about you from a mutual friend of ours, Christy Murphy, was that you prepped with your children weekly for the week.
Yes.
I found that to be fascinating because meal prepping for those of us who are running around like a chicken with our, what does that say?
Chicken with your head cut off.
Yeah. Meal prepping can sound like it is actually a huge time saver. A huge time saver.
Yes, people think I don't have time to meal prep. The flip side to that is if you meal prep, you have so much more time.
Yes.
And
all you have to do it is for 1 week. You do it for 1 week and you will realize in the evenings when your time is the most scarce in my opinion, because if you're full-time working, you're coming home, you have like this much time. If your kids have homework,
exactly
you have this much time.
Yes.
But if you've prepped on a Sunday or a Saturday or whenever works for you.
And some people have time to do 3 days prep. Like, what am I going to eat Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? And I'll get to this again, and I'll do the other 3 days then. Even if you can prep, and like I say, maybe you're ordering out, it's a huge financial bonus because eating out gets really expensive.
Right.
So if you're just kind of turning that around, I do a soup, a sauce, and a stew. So maybe make a soup, some sort of sauce, maybe a pasta sauce or something, a sauce for your chicken, and then a stew, something that is crock potable or instant potable, where it's just cooking itself, taking care of itself. But that's 3 nights that you kind of have.
And then if you have leftovers.
Yes, I always say purposeful leftovers. I make more on purpose so people have something. People are like, lunches are my hardest thing. What do you do for lunches? The kids always take what they had for dinner the night before.
Yeah.
So
let's just give an example of that, like what that would look like. So for example, you're going to prep for, say you're going to make 3 or 4 meals. Mm-hmm. You said a stew, soup, and
if I did a soup, a sauce, and a stew, I could throw in a salad in there, right?
Yeah.
So if like a soup, really quickly, you can already buy carrots, celery, onion already chopped up, right? You put that in a crock pot or in an instant pot, a little bit of oil or butter, saute that, put your chicken in there, add the water, done.
Yeah.
Salt it as you like. That is a whole dinner done. Take the chicken out after, obviously, take the meat off. You can either put the meat back in the chicken or on the side, make a chicken salad.
But you do all of this like what would a prep? What I'm wanting to get is like, what does a prep day look like?
That's what I would. Yep, I would. Okay. I would make that soup, and then all I had to do was saute some vegetables. So I'm moving on now. I will go to the stove and I'll make a sauce. I can make a tomato sauce. So I'll start making a tomato sauce up, and a stew. You could either use crock pot or instant pot. Usually I will use my instant pot twice, and I will spend 2 to 3 hours in the kitchen. But then if I'm strolling in at 5:30, my dinner, we're sitting at the table eating by 6. If I'm coming in at 6, we're sitting I just have to warm something up. Now, I'm not a big fan of grilling a whole bunch of stuff and then warming up meat. That's not my preference, but I will have it already in a marinade ready to grill.
Yeah.
So then there's that grilling time. It's 15 to 20 minutes. Right. But I will say from the time I get in the door till the meal is on the table. But if I made a soup, that soup would just sit in the fridge until I was a couple days, until I was ready to eat it. It
actually makes it taste better to do that.
I agree. Yeah. And the sauce as well takes a day. Stew, same thing. And then if you had some chicken in a marinade, you can top a fresh salad with that, a Caesar salad. And the next day, I always buy more lettuce. I'll do a bed of lettuce and send a chicken breast with the kids to school.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. And then doubling everything we make, we double, right? Or triple sometimes. Like if I make taco meat,
size. Yes.
I make 4 to 6 pounds of taco meat and then I freeze it, or something like that. So that then, man, that's even faster.
And that's a huge prep. Yeah. I mean, there's always, what I want is, I think Pringles does the ad, once you pop, you can't stop. So I want the food in my fridge to be just as easy to pop as that container of Pringles or whatever. Right. So if you can pop the lid off some taco meat and quickly get a breakfast taco together, breakfast should only take 5 minutes. If you had to make the meat, well, now we're talking 20 minutes. Right. But you can significantly decrease your time. And I would start by, like I say, prepping 1 to 2. And maybe you look ahead at your schedule and you've got an hour. I would say a meal, though, from start to finish often takes between an hour and 2 hours. So if you can make a few at a time, they overlap in time. Do you see what I'm saying? When I'm making a
totally.
soup, I can also make a sauce. Those are both in the fridge now.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd come home on a Monday, spend 2 hours. You are saving, I'm going to say you're cutting your time in half,
Yeah.
if not more.
Yeah.
By prepping.
Absolutely.
By prepping.
It's a mind shift. It's
It
a
is,
mind shift.
and I feel like it's a you have to experience. So I loved the reason that you heard about me was because I invited Christy in, and I'll never forget her son made lentil soup. She was like, "Oh, we're not going to eat. He's a kid. He's not going to eat. He was 9. He's not going to eat this." And I said, "You'll see what happens if he makes it." And she'll tell you to this day, he says that lentil soup is the best soup he's ever had, or
yeah.
and
he's
or he
off
loved
to
it.
college now.
He is.
He's never gonna forget that.
They own what they make, and they want you to try it. If they even have this much participation. So it's just, like I say, maybe the meal is not the end result, but let them participate in something one day. The next day, maybe do it a little bit more. Go to the grocery store with them. Let them read the ingredients if they can read. If they can't, you can read it to them. Educate them on the way there. Now, I heard this, or I heard that. Sugar, too much sugar makes us, get this. You have to get the sillies out and this and that.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's just conversations like that are wonderful. They're just not appropriate when they're sucking on a lollipop.
No,
So
yeah,
you don't want to
absolutely
shame
not.
anyone.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. I've done that.
Well,
Sorry, Carter.
no.
Sorry, Carter.
But it's, I feel like everyone's learning. I mean, I was
Absolutely.
super, super strict, but my kids were so young
Yeah.
that I feel like as I relaxed,
Yeah.
yes, they're going to go trick or
Yeah.
treating. Yes,
Yeah.
they're going to have dessert.
Yeah.
And people will think, oh, they don't even have sugar in that house. We do.
Yeah.
We do. But,
Yeah. Carter wouldn't hang out there if y'all didn't. I'm just kidding. But I'll tell you one thing. Carter loves to go to your house, and he loves to eat the food that you cook, and I always know it's healthy. He loves it. He brags about it. He brings leftovers home, too.
Well, and he has Frank Sinatra on his playlist because he
Yes.
says he hears it when I cook.
Yes,
That's my playlist,
yes,
but
yes,
my
yes,
kids
he loves it.
yes.
So that let's wrap this up
Mm-hmm.
by telling, like, not only have you're learning, and it's kind of like me,
Constantly learning.
you're learning, but then this is symbiotic, right? When you go through a trauma, when you go through a situation, and you begin to use it for your growth and for your good. Like it started, when I went through things, I started learning from my family, but now I get to sit here and it's symbiotic because everything I'm learning, I'm sharing with other people. And I feel like it not only blesses me, but it blesses other people. And that's really what you've done now is you're
Well, and I'll say I did a
blessing
lot
other
of
people.
failing forward. If I failed in something, right, then I wanted to know what I did wrong, and I wanted to fix it. One of the things that I'll say was a big mistake was trying to give all this information. It was like drinking out of a fire hose.
Yes.
Just because I knew it, I wanted other people to know it so bad. But these kinds of things take time. I'm still learning 15 years later.
Yeah.
But my biggest aha moment was I volunteer at a place called Canopy in the Woodlands. I teach nutrition oncology there, and I have a 12-week, I guess, well, it's like a 12-segment curriculum. But I volunteered there once a month. What I learned was these people that were experiencing trauma, and not only your audience is not just going to be focusing on food. They're focusing on CPS visits. They're
yeah.
focusing on so many other things
Yes,
that this is just a segment.
Yeah.
So that was really important to me. I learned that. That's one part of it. And it took some people 12 months to understand. And you know what? I call them my Canopy Crusaders. I call them my repeat offenders. They keep coming back for more because they understand now. They understood that concept. Now they can dig a little deeper.
Yes.
So I found that people with trauma, they just have a stronger why. Yeah. So over the holidays, I did start a nonprofit, which cancer patients, but listen, I am open to all people coming in to learn.
Anyone who wants to learn.
Of course.
Yeah.
Cancer patients will directly benefit from this nonprofit because they will not pay for any fee-based classes per se.
awesome.
So but I want everyone in the community to come there. I would love someone to come up there with their child and be like, hey, they want to learn how to cut a carrot. I would be delighted. So we're going to have a facility that I'm hoping will just better the community. And in our community, if we don't know someone who has cancer, we definitely know somebody who does. Like if they don't have it themselves,
Yeah.
they know somebody who does. And just through working through the community with all kinds of trauma, food heals. And food heals us in so many ways. But the art of cooking, it's a lost art.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like a lot of people are interested in bringing it back.
Yeah. You know, during COVID, that was a lot of people. Well, we were home, right?
Yes.
We were home, and I know in our house, we were taking pictures of all our meals and putting them on Facebook. You know, like, look at this, you know, this
Yes.
recipe was from such and such and such and
Yes.
such. And to me, I mean, yeah, I was kind of bragging.
Yes.
But it was also fun.
But you
were
took
sharing.
ownership in that.
You were
Yes.
sharing with other people, like, look what we did, you know, look what we've cooked. This is delicious. And so I think that it is, like what you say, it's a lost art. And I think we have to shift our mindset that this isn't something we have to do. Yeah, we do have to eat, but we get to do it. And what if we switch it as an experience?
Yes, and we look ahead at, like, well, even look by in the rearview mirror, and our society has only gotten faster, bigger, faster, stronger, more, and it's okay to just take a break. I keep saying balance is my new busy. I want balance in my life. I want to be able to have, yes, I meal prep because I've got kids in sport and things like this, but I enjoy that meal prep so much. And some people do not like to cook, right? But I feel like there's a lot of things in life that we don't like to do. That can be made at least a little bit more enjoyable, and add a partner, add a friend, you know. And it's, you know, I remember a couple of years back, girlfriend of mine was like, what are you doing? I'm just getting ready for dinner. What are you doing? I am too. I said, you know what? Threw all my vegetables in a basket, walked across the street, and we did it together. It was just a great memory.
Yeah.
So it's not that can happen every day, but
Yeah.
there are these little glimmers of, you know, just, you need those. You need
Absolutely.
those good experiences build upon one another.
That is so right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle.
Oh my gosh, you're welcome.
Our time flew by. I don't know how long we've been talking, but I again, every time I sit with you, I'm inspired to just do a little better at my
You're so
food and my
sweet. Well,
cooking.
thank you.
I do enjoy cooking, and I do enjoy kitchen time. My husband and I both, we really like to be in the kitchen together.
Which is awesome, but to the moms out there that are like, yeah, great, Tara, but
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
So teach your children,
Teach
and then
your
you won't
children.
have to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You won't have
Yeah,
to.
and you know, I when I say I love
They'll
doing
cook for
that,
you.
I love I choose simple recipes.
Yes.
Simple recipes. If I can't read an ingredient, I'm probably not going to make it. And so anyway, so Michelle and I, we just want to encourage you to just do, like she said, just pick a Sunday afternoon, invite the kids in, have all this stuff, because to be honest, Michelle, taking my girls to the grocery store, I do it on occasion, but it's just not my favorite thing.
Yes.
I feel like you have to walk through.
It just takes more time.
It does. And if they
Yes.
would just give the Buddy Bucks right when you got in the line, it would be better, because you have the tabloids on one side and the candy on the other, and neither one are good. Just
That's
give me the
right.
Buddy Bucks. But
Oh,
they usually
my
make me wait
goodness.
till the end. I'm like, give them to them now.
Yes, they can be occupied.
If you don't have an HEB and know what I'm talking about, I'm so sorry. But anyway, just start with a meal, right? Start with a couple of meals and invite your kids in, and check out Chef Kibbe, because I felt like this episode really goes well with him, episode 53. So
It was a great episode.
yeah. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. Michelle, all of Michelle's, her nonprofit information is going to be in the show notes. There'll be a way to contact her through her website. You can always reach out to me. Post your pictures. I would love to see anything you cook with your kids.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
It's
that'd
my
be so
favorite
fun.
thing.
On the Mama's Well website. Or no, Mama's Well Facebook page. Do that. So anyway, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Mama's well.
Yes, she